There are moments in life when everything shifts without warning. People arrive and people leave. Plans we were sure about suddenly dissolve. Certainties fall apart, and we are left holding questions we never asked for, and we find ourselves thinking, why did it have to be this way? Why now? Why me? Buddhist wisdom reminds us of something simple yet profound. Nothing in life happens by accident. Every experience, the gentle ones and the painful ones, belongs to a larger journey we cannot see all at once. We rarely understand the meaning while we are still inside the storm. Clarity comes later, when the heart settles, when enough time has passed for the pieces to reveal the picture they were forming all along. Maybe right now you feel lost, confused, tired. Maybe you are standing in a place where you can't yet see the path ahead. And that's okay. You don't need all the answers today. Stay here with me. We're going to walk through this slowly, with patience and presence, to breathe inside the moment you're living, to see how even chaos has its own sacred order. Because nothing comes without purpose, nothing leaves without teaching us something. And every step, including this one, is guiding you to a place you haven't reached yet. But one day, looking back, you will understand it with peace and with gratitude, when life asks you to trust. There are moments in life when everything seems to shift at once, and not gradually, not gently, but suddenly. As if someone quietly turned the page of your story while you were still reading the last line. A person you love takes a different path. An opportunity dissolves. A plan you depended on changes shape or disappears entirely. And without warning, you're standing in a space that feels unfamiliar, holding questions you never expected to face. That's when the mind begins to tremble. It reaches for reasons, for explanations, for a sense of control over what just changed. It wants clarity now, even though clarity rarely arrives in moments of disruption. And so we worry, we resist, we tighten around what used to feel safe, not realizing that this tightening is exactly what keeps us in pain. Life doesn't always speak through certainty. Most of the time it speaks through movement, through endings disguised as beginnings, through quiet nudges that we only recognize as guidance when we look back. Trust doesn't begin when things make sense. Trust begins when they don't. There's an old Buddhist saying, "A leaf does not choose when it falls or where it lands. The wind moves it. The season dictates its time, and yet somehow the leaf always finds the ground it needs to nourish the earth again." We forget that we are not so different. We plan, we predict, we think we direct our lives entirely, yet a single moment can change everything and reveal how little we actually control. When life asks you to trust, it does not do so calmly. It asks by removing what felt certain, by closing a door you didn't expect to close, by shifting the ground beneath your feet, just enough for you to realize you were never meant to stand still. And it's uncomfortable because the human heart loves answers. We want to know why something happened and what comes next before we take the next breath. But life doesn't unfold in full chapters. It unfolds one step at a time, one breath at a time, one quiet lesson after another. Think of winter in nature, branches bare, earth silent and still, a world that looks like it has stopped living. And yet, beneath that silence, life is quietly gathering strength. Roots grow deeper, energy builds. A season ends not to punish the tree, but to prepare it for a new beginning. Some seasons in your life look like winter, stillness, uncertainty, quiet. It doesn't mean nothing is happening. It means everything is happening, just not in the visible layer yet. Trust is not supposed to feel easy. Trust is the gentle courage to say, "I don't see the whole path yet, but I will take this step anyway." Not because you're sure of the result, but because you're sure that standing still in fear hurts more than moving forward in uncertainty. You don't need to understand everything today. You don't need the final picture right now. Life always gives you just enough, just the next insight, the next breath, the next opportunity, the next person, the next realization. Not because life withholds clarity, but because clarity given too early would overwhelm you. And if you look back, really look, you will find proof everywhere. Moments you thought would break you, yet they strengthened you. Situations you begged to keep, yet losing them made space for something better. People who left, and their absence, shaped your growth in ways their presence never could. You didn't get here by accident. You got here by surviving every version of yourself you once were, by outgrowing things you once clung to, by walking through endings you didn't choose and beginnings you didn't expect. You are being guided even now, not by force, but by life itself, which knows when it's time to move you, even if you don't feel ready. So breathe, soften your grip. Let this moment be what it is. Trust is not believing everything will be perfect. Trust is knowing that whatever happens, you will find your way through it, just as you always have. And in time, not today, not tomorrow, but in the quiet future waiting ahead, you will look back and whisper to yourself, I understand now. Everything had a reason, even this. When losing control sets you free, there are phases in life where you feel like your hands are slowly losing their grip on everything you once held tightly. You try to hold on to a plan, to a person, to a version of yourself, to a future you thought was certain. But the more you tighten your fingers, the more things begin to slip through. And there's a moment when you realize it's not life being cruel, it's life being honest. You were never meant to control everything. You were never meant to force every outcome. You were never meant to carry the universe on your shoulders and pretend it was strength. We talk about control as if it protects us, but control can become a cage disguised as safety. We cling because we fear the unknown, because uncertainty looks like danger, because the mind believes that if it can predict, it can avoid pain. Yet what does control really give us? Worry, tension, sleepless nights, a constant feeling that one wrong move will collapse everything we've built. Control promises peace, but it demands anxiety as payment. The Buddha taught that much of our suffering comes not from life itself, but from our resistance to what life brings. We don't suffer because things change, we suffer because we refuse to let them change. Think of water held in a tight fist. The more you squeeze, the faster it escapes. Relax your hand, and the water stays gently in your palm. Life works in the same way. When you loosen your grip, when you stop trying to force every detail, when you allow events and people and moments to come and go naturally, you discover something liberating. You don't fall apart. You breathe, you soften, you open, and life begins to move again. Losing control is not losing yourself. It is shedding the illusion that you were ever supposed to manage everything alone. Think about a time where something didn't go according to your plan. Maybe you lost a job you thought you needed. Maybe a relationship ended when you were still holding on. Maybe a path you believed was the right one suddenly closed. At first it hurts, it feels unfair, it feels like failure. But with distance, with time, with honesty, you begin to see something else. Life was creating space, space for growth, space for someone better suited to your heart, space for a different direction you couldn't see from where you were. Sometimes what looks like life falling apart is actually life clearing the way. Sometimes losing control is the beginning of real freedom. There is a quiet strength that appears the moment you stop fighting what you cannot change. It doesn't feel dramatic, it feels like an exhale you've been holding your whole life. Victories don't always look like triumph. Sometimes they look like softness. Sometimes the deepest strength is in saying, I don't have to force this anymore. When you stop trying to control everything, you start participating in life instead of managing it. You rediscover flow. You rediscover patience. You rediscover trust, not blind trust, not naive faith, but a grounded, mature recognition that life knows how to unfold without your constant interference. Look at a river. It doesn't demand the rocks move. It doesn't fight the bends in its path. It navigates, it adjusts, it flows, and in time it shapes even the hardest stone. Its power comes not from control, but from surrender. And you, like that river, are strongest not when you force your way through life, but when you move with it. Control says, I must know what happens next. Trust says, whatever comes, I will meet it. Control says, if I let go, I will fall. Life whispers, if you let go, you will rise. Letting go is not about giving up. It is about giving yourself permission to rest from the exhausting task of trying to manipulate outcomes that were never entirely yours to create. There is peace on the other side of surrender, not the surrender of defeat, but the surrender of wisdom, the surrender of someone who has realized that forcing life only makes it heavier, while allowing life to unfold creates space for grace. One day you will look back at this moment, this chapter where uncertainty feels endless and control is slipping away, and you will see that it was not chaos, it was alignment, it was guidance, it was life shifting you toward a version of yourself that force and fear could never have built. You don't need to hold everything, you just need to hold yourself and trust that life is holding the rest. When pain becomes a door, not a wall, there are chapters in life where pain arrives without knocking, where loss becomes an unexpected visitor, and where something inside you breaks in a way you didn't know was possible. We often believe pain is a punishment, a sign that life has gone wrong, a failure of our plans, a betrayal of what we hoped for, but there is a truth the heart learns slowly. Pain is not the end of the path. Pain is the turning point. It is not the wall that stops you. It is the door you don't yet realize you are being asked to walk through. Suffering hurts because it touches what we value. It breaks the illusions we built to feel safe. It strips away attachments we believed were permanent. It confronts us with truths we tried to avoid. And yet, if you look closely, pain also reveals things nothing else can. Your resilience, your depth, your capacity to feel, your courage to heal, your ability to begin again. There is a misconception that spiritual growth means avoiding pain, but true awakening is not the escape from pain, it is the transformation of it. Pain shows you where you were holding on too tightly. It shows you what in your life was built on fear instead of truth. It shows you who stands beside you when everything else falls away. It shows you what matters and what never did. Sometimes we don't grow when we are comfortable. Sometimes we grow because life removes what we thought we needed, so we can discover what we actually carry inside. Think back to a wound you once believed you would never recover from, a heartbreak that shattered your expectations of love, a disappointment that shook your belief in yourself, a moment where you felt lost, unseen, or forgotten. Now notice who you are because of it. Notice the strength you didn't have before. Notice the clarity you gained. Notice how differently you show up in the world now, not weaker, but wiser. Pain is a sculptor. It carves away what is false, not to destroy you, but to reveal you. A seed must break open to grow. A bone must realign to heal properly. A muscle trembles and tears so it can rebuild stronger. The heart is no different. When you hurt, it is not evidence that you are failing at life. It is evidence that you are living it, that you tried, that you cared, that something mattered to you enough to feel it deeply. In Buddhism, we learn pain is inevitable, suffering is optional. We suffer not simply because pain exists, but because we cling to the way things were or to the way we believe they should be. Pain is the signal, suffering is the resistance. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" we slowly learn to ask, "What is this trying to teach me?" That shift does not erase the hurt. Nothing wise or true ever rushes healing, but it turns the heart toward meaning instead of despair. There is a quiet moment in every healing journey. You may not even notice it when it happens, where the pain softens just enough for you to see that you are still here, that you are breathing, that something inside you refuses to be defeated. That is the moment strength is born, not loud, not dramatic, but silent, steady, real. Pain reshapes us. It humbles the ego, deepens compassion, opens the eyes, softens judgment. Those who have never suffered may speak confidently, but those who have suffered and risen, they speak with a different kind of wisdom, not from theory, but from survival. When pain arrives, you are not being punished. You are being initiated into a deeper version of yourself, one who feels more, understands more, forgives more, sees more clearly. One day you will look back and say, "It hurt, yes, but that hurt became the bridge. That pain became the teacher. That moment broke me open so life could enter." And when you meet someone hurting, you will know how to sit beside them, not with empty comfort, but with the quiet presence of someone who has walked through fire and learned how to breathe on the other side. Pain is not the end. It is the beginning of a new chapter you didn't know you were ready for. A chapter where you meet yourself again, not as who you were, but as who you are becoming. Let the pain sharpen you, not harden you. Let it open you, not close you. Let it be the whisper that says this too is part of your becoming. Walk through the door, letting go without closing your heart. There comes a moment in every path where life asks you to let go, not because you failed, not because something went wrong, but because holding on any longer would mean holding yourself back. We often imagine letting go as a sharp, sudden moment, as if one day we wake up and simply stop caring, simply stop feeling, simply stop missing what once mattered so much. But that's not how the heart works. Letting go is not a switch, it is a slow unfolding, a gentle loosening of the threads we once wrapped around a chapter, a person, a dream, a version of ourselves. It is not forgetting, it is understanding. Sometimes the most difficult part is this: we can loosen our grip and still love. We can release and still feel gratitude. We can walk away and still carry a quiet tenderness for what once was. The world often confuses letting go with becoming cold, but numbness is not healing, it is armor. Real letting go is softer. It is saying, "I honor what this meant to me. I learned from it. I grew through it. And now, without anger, without bitterness, without fear, I allow life to move." One of the most painful experiences is not losing something, but realizing you are not the same person who once needed it. Growth does that. Maturity does that. Awakening does that. Sometimes we don't outgrow people. We outgrow the version of ourselves we were with them. And letting go doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop clinging. You stop gripping a moment that has already finished its teaching. You stop looking backwards for validation or safety. You stop trying to return to a chapter that already ended its sentence. There is beauty in endings. When we stop treating them like failures, there is dignity in stepping away with your heart open, not closed, not hardened, not resentful, but simply ready. Ready to love differently, ready to receive differently, ready to become someone new. Think of a tree in autumn. It does not rip its leaves away. It doesn't force the fall. It simply recognizes when the time has come and allows what once nourished it to drift gently to the ground, not in rejection, but in trust, not with bitterness, but with understanding. This too was part of my growth. And now I make space for the next season. Letting go requires courage, not of the body but of the heart, the courage to love without ownership, to appreciate without attachment, to bless the path of someone who can no longer walk beside you and still choose your own with grace. And here is the secret many never learn. Love that needs to hold tight to survive is not love. It is fear. True love, whether romantic, familial or spiritual, grows when you give it freedom. To let someone go does not mean they lose value. It means you honor the moment you shared, and you honor the person you are becoming. And there will be days when the heart remembers, a voice, a place, a smile, a hope. Memory is not failure. Feeling is not weakness. It is the echo of a chapter that helped shape your soul. Let yourself feel it. Let yourself mourn it. Let yourself bless it. Then breathe again. Step again. Trust again. Not every ending is tragedy. Some are quiet acts of wisdom. Some are invitations to new beginnings disguised as loss. Some are not departures, but arrivals to who you were always meant to be. Letting go without closing your heart is one of the highest forms of strength. It means you are learning to love not from fear, not from attachment, but from a place of presence and truth. And when you release with love, you do not lose anything. You simply return to yourself. And in that returning, you make space for the life waiting to meet you. You do not move on in one step. You move on in one soft breath at a time, the strength you find when everything falls apart. There are chapters in life that arrive quietly at first, and then all at once you realize that everything you were holding on to is slipping away. Not slowly, not gently, but in a way that leaves you breathless, wondering how something so familiar could suddenly feel so distant. Maybe it was a relationship you believed would last forever. Maybe it was a dream you carried in your chest like a living pulse. Maybe it was a version of yourself you worked years to build, and then life in its mysterious timing asks you to face the truth. What once held you is no longer where you are meant to stay. At first the instinct is resistance. We cling, we bargain, we replay memories and rewrite conversations in our minds, as if one perfect moment in the past could somehow anchor the present. The shock hurts, the confusion hurts, and there's a part of you that whispers, "I don't know how to live without this." That is the part that believes strength means holding everything together, even when it's already falling apart. But life has a different understanding of strength, a quieter one, a deeper one. Strength is not found at the moment of collapse. Strength begins in the silence that follows, in the moments when you sit with yourself and realize that even though a piece of your life has changed, you are still here, breathing, feeling, trying. There is a kind of courage that does not roar. It doesn't wear armor. It doesn't raise its voice. It appears slowly, like morning light touching a window for the first time after a long night. It's the courage to wake up again, to take one small step when everything feels heavy, to believe even faintly that life has not abandoned you, that perhaps it is guiding you toward a version of yourself you could never have become without this rupture. When everything falls apart, your ego breaks, yes, but so does the shell around your heart. The illusions fall away, the expectations dissolve, and suddenly you are face to face with your truest self. The part of you that survives endings, the part that does not disappear when roles and attachments do, the part that knows how to rebuild. Loss is not just about losing something outside you. It is about rediscovering something inside you, a strength that was always there, waiting beneath the surface, waiting for the moment life would ask it to rise, and it rises quietly, not in triumph but in humility, not as pride but as presence. You stop needing to prove anything. You stop needing to hold everything. You simply continue, softly, honestly, bravely, slowly. You notice the world again, a breath that feels easier, a morning that feels a little brighter, a piece of music that reaches you in a new way, a future that for the first time in a long time doesn't feel frightening. It feels possible, and that is strength, Not perfection, not invincibility, but possibility. The willingness to trust life again, even after life has taken something from you. One day, not suddenly but naturally, you realize that what collapsed did not destroy you. It reshaped you. It humbled you. It deepened you. It taught you tenderness and clarity and depth. And your heart, once afraid of breaking, starts to understand something sacred. It did not break to punish you. It broke to open you. And from that opening, something true begins to grow. Quiet, steady, real. Not a return to who you were, but the arrival of who you are becoming. That is strength, the kind that cannot be shaken, because it was earned in the moments when you thought you had nothing left. Yet somehow you found a way to continue, not perfectly, just honestly, and that was enough. When life speaks through signs and encounters, there are moments when life seems to whisper instead of speak. A coincidence that feels too meaningful to ignore. A person who appears at the exact moment you needed them, without knowing why they showed up or why you feel like you've known them longer than time allows. A path you weren't planning to take, and yet somehow you find your feet moving toward it anyway. We are often trained to believe life is only logic, only planning, only effort and strategy and control. But anyone who has truly lived knows there is another layer, a quiet intelligence beneath everything, a rhythm that moves us even when our minds don't understand. Sometimes it arrives as intuition, a feeling in the body before thought forms in the mind. Other times it comes as repetition, the same idea showing up again and again, in conversations, in books, in the way the world arranges itself around you. And sometimes it comes as disruption, an unexpected turn that forces you in a new direction, not because you wanted it, but because life knows where you belong before you do. You begin to notice things differently when your heart starts to wake, noticing the right sentence at the right moment, the right opportunity when you felt hopeless, the right friend when you thought you were alone. These are not accidents. They are threads in a pattern too vast for the mind to swallow all at once, but the heart recognizes it instantly. This means something. Buddhist wisdom teaches interdependence, that nothing arises independently, nothing exists in isolation, and everything touches everything. What looks like coincidence is often connection we do not yet understand. You cross paths with someone who changes your life because their steps and yours have been weaving toward each other long before you met. You receive a message on a day you felt invisible because life sometimes sends reminders through other hearts. And yes, sometimes you lose someone without explanation, not because the timing was wrong, but because their chapter in your story had already done its work. They taught what they came to teach. They unlocked a part of you no one else could. Their leaving was not abandonment, it was completion. Life does not always speak in words. Often it speaks in movement, in timing, in endings that protect you, in beginnings that surprise you, in moments that feel like gentle nudges from something wiser than fear. There will be periods when you don't trust these signs, when doubt covers your sight, and every coincidence feels random. Every connection feels fragile. That is part of the journey too. Belief is not constant. It expands and contracts like breath. There are days you feel guided and days you feel alone. Both are sacred, both grow you. What matters is learning to listen, not desperately searching for signs, but becoming quiet enough inside to notice when life places one gently before you. Sometimes guidance feels like peace, and sometimes it feels like discomfort pushing you forward. Sometimes it feels like clarity, and sometimes it feels like a gentle pull towards something you cannot explain yet. Only trust, and trust is enough. Not blind faith, not fantasy, but the simple willingness to say, I am being moved for a reason. I don't need to see it yet to believe it matters. We often think meaning comes after life reveals the full picture, but meaning begins now, in recognizing that nothing in your life has been random, that every soul who touched you, every detour, every coincidence, every heartbreak, every unexpected blessing, all of it stitched together, the person you are becoming. Life speaks, through signs, through timing, through the quiet pull in your chest, through the people who arrive at the very moment you need light, and even when you don't see it, even when you doubt, question, resist, life keeps speaking, life keeps guiding, life keeps showing the way, one subtle thread at a time. When time reveals what pain hides, there are moments in life where everything feels like a question without an answer. You look at what happened, at what you lost, at what slipped through your fingers, and you think, why this? Why now? Why like that? When we are hurting, the world feels small, the heart turns inward, the future becomes a blur. Pain narrows our vision until all we can see is the wound in front of us. In those moments, it's hard to imagine that anything good could come from what hurts. Everything feels personal, everything feels unfair, life feels like a closed door. But pain has a strange relationship with time. In the beginning, pain closes us. Later, it reshapes us. And slowly, almost secretly, it begins to open us again. Not immediately, not all at once. It unfolds in small realizations. A morning when your chest feels a little lighter. A memory that no longer cuts as deeply. A day when you laugh without feeling guilty for it. A moment when you find yourself breathing more softly, as if your body finally trusts life again. And then one day, without ceremony, you look back and understand something you couldn't see before. Not everything that broke you was there to destroy you. Some things broke you open. Time reveals what pain hides. It shows you the truth behind endings. It shows you the gifts disguised as losses. It shows you that the universe does not take without giving. It reshapes, redirects, rebalances. You begin to see who you became because of what happened. More patient, more aware, more compassionate, less naive about the world, but more hopeful about yourself. The things you thought would crush you became things you grew through. The seasons you feared you wouldn't survive are now the chapters that shaped your strength, your sensitivity, your wisdom. You start to realize that you were never being abandoned, you were being prepared, you were never being punished, you were being refined. Life wasn't closing doors to hurt you, it was making space for the ones you truly belong to. And what once felt like the end now begins to look like the beginning. Because in many ways, it always was. Healing doesn't erase the past, but it changes it. It turns pain into perspective, hurt into understanding, loss into clarity, and confusion into faith. There is a moment, gentle and sacred, when you stop asking, "Why did this happen to me?" and start quietly thinking, "Thank you for what it showed me." That is not forgetting. That is not denial. That is maturity. That is the growth of the soul. Time does not heal everything. Time creates the space for healing to take place. And when you meet that time with patience, with presence, with the courage to feel instead of run, you realize that the heart carries a wisdom older than pain itself. You learn to bow softly to what once hurt you, not out of weakness, but out of gratitude, because it was part of your path, part of your growth, part of your becoming. And slowly, you stop hating what broke you and start seeing who you became because of it. There is peace in that understanding, a quiet peace, the kind that doesn't need to shout or prove anything. It simply rests inside you like a truth that was always there, just waiting for you to be ready to notice it. And when that moment comes, you understand something simple and deep. Nothing was wasted. Nothing was pointless. Everything was shaping you gently, painfully, beautifully into who you are now. The peace that comes when understanding finally blossoms. There comes a moment, not announced, not loud, not marked on any calendar, when something inside you gently softens, not because everything is perfect now, not because life suddenly became easy, but because the struggle inside you has changed shape. It is not giving up. It is not surrendering. It is acceptance, the kind that grows slowly, quietly, like morning light slipping through a curtain. You stop fighting the past. You stop demanding life return to what it once was. You stop asking why things didn't happen the way you imagined. Instead, you begin to feel something deeper, something steady, a calm understanding that everything you lived brought you here, to a wiser, softer, more grounded version of you. There is peace in that realization, not a peace that ignores pain or avoids memory, but a peace that sits beside them and says thank you. You see now when you look back that life was never punishing you, it was preparing you, it was shaping your heart, teaching you patience, showing you what truly matters and what only seemed like it did. And slowly you begin to trust life again, not blindly, but with mature faith, with open eyes and a steady heart. You start to understand that arrivals and departures are both directions, that some things come into your life to lift you, and others come to teach you how to stand, that some people walk with you for a chapter, and some walk with you just long enough to show you the next path. And you realize that not every ending is a loss. Some endings are beginnings disguised as goodbyes. Some closures are blessings you don't see at first. Some doors close because your soul has already moved ahead, even if your mind needed time to follow. This peace does not erase your story. It includes it. It allows you to hold the past without gripping it, remember without hurting, love without clinging. You stop wishing things had been different and start appreciating the journey for what it was, a path that taught you strength, humility, tenderness, courage, and then you begin to feel something new rising inside you, a readiness not to return to who you were, but to meet who you are becoming. You begin to open to life again, not with desperation, but with quiet curiosity. You trust the timing of your steps, you breathe a little deeper, you welcome the unknown with gentleness instead of fear, because you understand now that life is not against you, it never was. It was guiding you, creating space inside you, expanding you in ways you couldn't see when the storm was above you. And in that understanding you find a peace that cannot be shaken, because it is no longer built on certainty, but on presence, on surrender, on the realization that you can meet life as it comes and still remain whole. You become grounded not in control, but in awareness, not in prediction, but in trust. And as you breathe into this truth, you may feel a soft warmth in your chest, a quiet knowing that whispers, I did not break. I changed, and now I am ready. A quiet return to yourself. There comes a time after all the questioning, after all the holding on and letting go, after the nights that felt endless, when something inside you gently returns home, not to who you were, but to who you have become. A wiser you, a calmer you, a you who understands that life is not a punishment or a puzzle, but a path. Every joy and every heartbreak, every meeting and every goodbye, every clear moment and every confused one, it all belonged, it all shaped you, it all carried you one breath closer to yourself. You understand now that not every answer comes when you demand it. Some answers appear in whispers, in time, in reflection, in the quiet spaces you once feared. And slowly you learn to trust again, not because life always gives you what you want, but because life always gives you what leads you to truth. Your heart didn't break as punishment. It broke open to make space, space for understanding, space for compassion, space for a strength that doesn't need to fight to feel strong. You have walked through endings. You have carried doubts. You have stood in uncertainty and still moved forward, and that matters. It means you are alive in a deep way. It means you have learned to grow where you never expected to. It means you are not who you once were. And that is something to respect, not fear. Everything that happened through you, not to make you smaller, but to make you real, to bring you closer to presence, to gratitude, to awareness. And maybe now, as you breathe, you can feel that gentle truth rising, that soft peace that comes not from control, but from surrender. Nothing was wasted, nothing was pointless, nothing was random. You were being shaped, you were being guided, and you were never walking alone. If this journey touched you, if you felt understood, if a part of you softened while listening, I invite you to pass it forward. Share this video with someone who may need a moment of peace, someone walking through a quiet chapter, someone who needs to remember they are not broken, they are becoming. Sometimes, one message is enough to help someone continue one more night, one more morning, one more step. So if you feel it, send it to them.